Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Infirmary. Today, I am joined by athlete Annie Solonika. Did I pronounce that right?
Nope, Salonica.
No, Solonika. Oh, interesting. Okay. Awesome. Where does that name come from? What's the
It's like,
heritage of that?
yeah, it's actually Slovakian. It used to be spelled with some C's and Z's and
Hmm.
pronounced Y. And then when they came over to the US, it just was Salonica. I don't know. You can't really say it much better, but
Solonika. I like that. So,
yeah.
Solonika. Awesome. Today, we are sitting down with former Campfire athlete Annie Solonika to talk about the goals of coaching, both from an athletic and a coach's perspective. I think that a lot of assumptions get made out there from both the coach and the athlete perspective on what to expect from coaching. And sometimes those expectations don't get voiced out loud, which can lead to confusion and misunderstanding. And today we're going to explore how both coaches and athletes can communicate what they need from each other in order for both coach and athlete to have productive experiences. Annie is an excellent amateur triathlete and also the owner of Full Circle Stretching in Salem, Oregon, and a mom to two little girls. In other words, her calendar is booked. Annie worked with us last year as she prepared for and raced Boulder 70.3, Oregon 70.3, and Tri Cities 70.3 races where she finished seventh, third, and second in the always competitive women's 35 to 39-year-old field. Annie, welcome to the infirmary. I hope we can help.
Thank you. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have an athlete back that we've worked with in the past, because I think that once you're sort of outside of the relationship, it's a lot easier to talk about like how we work and how you work. And I just really think this is going to be a fun way to talk about just the nature of coaching, because I think coaches a lot of times don't really understand exactly what it is that athletes are looking to find. And I think sometimes athletes don't really understand what like the coach is sort of trying to achieve either. And so hopefully this is a good discussion for both of us and, all the athletes and the coaches that are out there.
Yeah.
Um, but first of all, like I know very little about your business, Full Circle Stretching. Like, I know plenty about physiology and the benefits of stretching and mobility, but can you tell me a little bit about what it is you do, who
Yeah.
you serve, and then also, like, what is the intended goal of the work that you do?
Yeah. So what I do is called fascial stretch therapy. And basically how I explain it is people come in, I have a massage table, but you just wear regular clothes and you lay down on it. And sometimes you'll be on your back, side, stomach, but tractioning joints, stretching. It's a lot of kind of oscillating movement. And then I'll use like PNF where like somebody will like press into me and then I might press into them and we'll go back and forth that way. Um, there's some floor ones, but I mean it's assisted stretching.
Uh-huh.
Um, and there's some kind of press and stretching that I'll do, but and I see a range of people, like anywhere between, I mean, like I think my oldest client is 82, and then I see high school students as well. So it's like huge range.
Mhm.
And people come in for all different reasons. Like there'll be injury recovery. Uh, Probably like my biggest group of people are people like around 50 that are like realizing, oh, I don't feel so great. And when I get up in the morning and they're just like looking for more mobility, they're like, their body hurts and they just are like, okay, I need to actually do something about this. Um, but I have some dancers, like I have some bodybuilders and jujitsu, like, it's just a huge range of
Mhm.
people. So, but and the goals of everybody for coming in is totally different too. Like some people really use it for stress relief. Some people use it to get more mobility or to get more injury prevention or pain free. But so it's like each client comes in with something different and it can do all those things. So yeah.
how did you get into it? How did you arrive doing this work?
Yeah. Well, I started teaching yoga first. And then I honestly just I knew that like just teaching yoga, I would probably get burnt out. And so I was looking for just a different, I mean, I'm interested in the body. So I was like,
Mhm.
wanting to find something in the body work realm. But I didn't think massage was really my niche. And I had it done by somebody I knew. Um, she had gotten certified in it. And this was like 11 years. So I've been doing it for 11 years. And I had it done and I just thought it felt so good. Like I was like, yeah, I've always been active and my body was like, this is great. I want to do this. And so I signed up and just went through the trainings. So it took like a year and a half to like
Mhm.
do all three of them. And then, yeah, yeah,
Like most of us that end up in a business from something that we really like and value, sometimes we don't get to do that thing as much anymore. You know, the prime example is the person who owns a bike store and then never goes on a bike ride again.
yeah.
Is this work that you can do yourself? Are you able to do auto release for yourself using tools or things like that? Or do you basically now have to go find somebody else that can do the work for you?
It's so there are a lot of ways to do myofascial release yourself, but you can't really replicate what I do on your own just because of the traction that's involved in the
Hmm.
joints. And so,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I have tried lots of different, well, there's like a couple stretches that I'm like, how do I do this? But it's kind of impossible. So,
Hmm.
but like, you can do a good job doing myofascial release with, myofascial release balls and rolling and all that other stuff too. But yeah, I have to find somebody, which I haven't really yet. So,
That's a bummer. I'm sorry to hear that.
oh yeah.
I mean, that sort of leads into our discussion about coaching and that, like, it is you were self coaching for the first couple of years before you came and worked with us.
Mhm.
And could you kind of and all of this is a real discussion. I'm not looking for you to be like, oh no, things were way better when I was coached. Like I'm
Yeah,
really interested in this just in terms of interacting with athletes out there. Could you
yeah.
talk about the differences between your self-coached periods and your coached periods?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like when I first started, I had no idea what I was doing. So it was like I think that I was just trying to do all the things like one or two things a day and like just kind of so sporadic. I mean, I had to learn how to swim, I had to learn how to ride my bike. Like I just I had no idea. And so I think that like when I went from being self-coached to coaching, it was like, oh, there's actually like a real process to this and like learning like the like have like doing, like this type of a bike ride maybe followed by this type of a run the next day and then, like everything is like pretty planned out. And like it was a big difference between just kind of like I'm going to go do this and then I'm going to go do this and I did a bike and a run and sure. So
Mhm.
it like yeah, big difference.
Mhm.
But um I don't know. Yeah. I did like being like when I was by myself, I feel pretty lucky that I was able to create like the discipline pretty well. Like I made myself do it. Like wasn't that hard for me.
Mhm.
Um but the structure, like having structure within the workouts and structure within the week was super helpful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What is something that you learned in like both of those situations? Like, what is something you can remember, like a light bulb moment when you were self coached, maybe, just about sport as a whole, a triathlon as a whole, and then another one of those light bulb moments when you were coached by someone?
Mm. Light bulb moment, self-coached. Really is just like, I mean, just like crossing the finish line of the first one and being like, wow, shit, I just did that. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Like being like, okay, I can do this. And I mean, it was like, that first one was it was just so crazy. I gave myself like a whole year to train for it. And so just like being like, oh, I can put in the work and, manage and get
Mhm.
through and cross that finish line. So yeah, I don't, and then with coaching, it was just like, it felt different. Like it was, I think that it was really confidence building. Like it was like when I was self coaching, I was like, I think I can do it. Like I'm doing these things, I think I can do it. But then coaching, having a coach to be able to be like, no, Annie, you put in the work. So you could like just having that like other voice being like, you've put in the work, you can do it, go have fun, you've got this. Like it's all there. Um, and so just having that like that just I don't yeah. I don't know if that really answers the question, but like
Totally. Yeah.
it was just yeah, just it was different.
Mhm.
It felt good.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing you're talking about is like when you're self-coached, you kind of have to like outsource, like you are the source of your own confidence. Like you have to be because you're the only person doing the plan and doing the racing.
Yeah.
But during my periods of self-coaching, there was always kind of like a question mark, like, am I doing this right? Is this what I should be doing right now? And
Yeah.
then the upside of that is that when you do finish a race and it does go well, you're like, well, that was all me. Like I created that. And that's, one of the things that I think is so great about endurance sports is they show us like our efficacy in the world.
Mhm.
But then the nice thing about having a coach is like some of that confidence is kind of outsourced.
Yeah.
Like you have somebody who has a very like not a perspective that is not biased,
Yeah.
because we are always our own worst critics.
Yes.
And so it's always nice to like have that coach that's like, nope, things are good, you're doing fine, keep doing it, here's what you need to do. And it's just it I think it can be a more, maybe you don't get that big, like I did all of this myself, but there are fewer question marks kind of along the way.
Yeah. It's like a different type of confidence because it's like not like the like, wow, I did that, but like it's like, yeah, of course I did
Mhm.
that. Like it's been planned and it felt solid. And
Mhm.
then also I think with working with a coach on the races that maybe I didn't do like as well as I wanted to, like having a coach kind of talk me through that was also super helpful because it was like, oh, okay, yeah, like I guess I did a good job. Or,
Yeah, totally.
like
Right. Like,
like just
no,
having
you're,
I'll
you're
get
not a
the
bad person. It was a hot day. like,
right.
like
Right.
Boulder is a very high altitude place.
Ugh, oh,
Yeah.
I hate it. Oh
I
my
know. I remember talking to you after Boulder and you were like,
God.
whoa.
It's not I
Yeah.
felt like drowning. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's just not fun. But yeah. Anyway, it's good.
When you started looking for a coach, when you kind of decided, okay, I want to get a coach, what were you looking for?
I was looking, I was looking for somebody with experience, like who had coached a lot of people and maybe but just been in the field for a long time. Um, just because I knew, like, I kind of knew where I was, and I was like, I was decent at the time, so I was like, I really wanted to improve, and so like having somebody with experience was important to me, and then also being able to communicate well was really important, and just like having somebody who was uplifting, but not like too like and like kind of stern. You mean like when I was like, if I try to like do something that they're
Mhm.
like, no. Like they would tell me, but like not to the point of like understanding, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like it sounds like you were looking for sort of like a firm, but like also affirming kind of voice, and
Yes.
like it's so different. Some people come in and they're like some people want a drill sergeant, and like some people want, like rainbows and unicorns.
Right.
And I think it's different for everybody. That's like, and so for you, I think probably a lot of people fall into where you're at, where it's like, no, I want somebody to tell me when I'm not doing it right, or to like hold me accountable when maybe I'm, something's not going well, but also be kind.
Right. Right. And what do you like for an what are
Wow,
your
okay. Wow, I love it. Good. Yeah. See, this is what I was hoping was going to happen. Was we were just going to go back and forth. Um, yeah. I mean, like, Donna and I, your coach Donna and I are pretty similar in terms of experience, and then also generally defaulting probably to a more positive reinforcement place. But then
Mhm.
also when something might not be going right, be like, hey, we got to change this.
Yeah.
um, I mean, for me, a lot of the things that you just said about communication are the thing that I'm looking for when I work with an athlete.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons we're having this conversation is because, I think you really fit a lot of what we really like working with at Campfire, which
Mhm.
is that the athlete comes in with their own motivation. Like, I
Okay.
think that's the thing that's really a struggle for a lot of coaches,
Mhm.
is the feeling that they are having to supply an athlete's motivation.
Yeah.
Um, and I heard this from my therapist once, that you should never work harder than your client.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that is such a great point of view.
Yeah.
Because like, I think a lot of people that do this job as a coach, like, are very motivated about their athletes and like want their athletes to have success, want their athletes to be happy and fulfilled.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that can end up being like, okay, I'm going to do whatever I can to get this athlete out the door. But you're a parent, so you understand that like sometimes doing that stuff for the people that we're responsible for does them a disservice.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
like, I want somebody that is brings their own motivation,
Uh-huh.
but then when they are struggling or when it's not going well, are open to examining why that is. you
Yeah.
know so like, I'm totally happy to work with somebody about why their motivation might be flagging. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's really interesting, because I think that, we're all very different people,
Yeah.
and you go through periods of being, motivated and inspired, and then sometimes obligated,
Right.
like when the training feels like work.
Yes.
Um, and so I want to work with people that 90% of the time bring their own motivation. And then
Yeah.
when they're not feeling motivated, are willing to look at it and figure out why,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but yeah, motivation, communication is so important.
Mhm.
Like, if you don't have a regular back and forth with your athletes,
Mhm.
you don't know who they are.
Right.
And so then you can't sort of suit your coaching to them.
Right.
So yeah, for me, motivation, willingness to communicate,
Yeah.
um, and then also accountability. Like
Yeah.
when, like when, if I ask an athlete, like, hey, why did you decide not to like stick to the plan at that particular moment? Or why did you decide not to do that workout? If it is a reason that was under their control, I really want them to be like, yeah, just decided not to do it at that moment.
Yeah.
Because then that gives you a window to figure out why.
Right.
Be like, okay, let's talk about it. Like, talk to me about like your past experiences with competition.
Right.
And then you can figure it out and make it better.
Yeah.
So like, I think the thing I would boil this all down to is an athlete who really wants to be part of the process, who
Yeah.
doesn't expect that I'm going to spoon feed them motivation and workouts
Yeah.
and and a race by and like a race plan that is they just have to like paint by number,
Yeah.
because none of those things, like a training plan or a race plan,
Hmm.
ever goes the way that it is written.
Nope.
And 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 that's to be expected. Like that's the
Yeah.
whole point of this, is that it is unpredictable. And so
Right.
somebody who's really willing to see that and be like, "Oh, this is a chance to learn and get better." Like that's
Yeah.
who I want to work with.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think of the there's those you kept saying motivation and I don't know, the difference between like the whole thing of motivation versus like discipline.
Mm,
Like I know. Like cuz I feel like motivation nobody ever has motivation all the time. But then like building, but I guess that would just play into like yeah, you just have to build habits and
mhm.
then you like the discipline comes in. You're like I'm just going to do it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think this
Yeah.
is where this is like where some of my background in recovery comes from,
Yeah.
because one of the big problems with with addiction and trying to deal with addiction
Mhm.
is that if you just try to white knuckle it, like
Mhm.
if you're just going to be like, I am not going to drink through the sheer power of my will,
Yeah.
that never works.
Right.
And and it's the things that get people healthy and keep them healthy are engaging with other people. Like
Mhm.
that's the solution to getting better. And it's the whole
Mhm.
reason why that a lot of recovery programs build in, like a higher power or something like that.
Yeah.
Because if you just try to do it alone, if you try to
Mhm.
be the only source of your willpower and your discipline,
Yeah.
like it won't work, first of all.
Right.
And you're also going to feel so alone.
Yeah.
Like
Like
you're just,
like
it's going to be a very lonely experience.
yeah.
And but I think that if we are talking about like an athlete like you who is motivated, probably like 85 to 90% of the time everything's going to be fine.
Right.
Like you're mostly going to be, most of the time you're going to have like a normal level of motivation that
Mhm.
you're like, okay, I'm a little tired, but this is
I'm just
going
gonna
fine. I'm interested, if not excited today.
right.
10% of the time you'll be inspired, and those
Yeah.
are those periods of training when everything kind of just comes easy and you're so excited to go to the pool and get on your bike, and it just feels great.
Yeah.
And you know sadly those periods will pass also. You don't get to live in inspiration.
Right.
And then the other end of the spectrum, and I think you're already sort of talking about this, is when you're in that period where it does feel like work.
Mhm.
I think the thing that I will talk to athletes about is like okay, it's easy to be good on a good day.
Mhm.
It's pretty easy to be good on a normal day.
Yeah.
The most difficult thing that any athlete will face is being good when it's a bad day. And
Yeah.
this is, I mean, I'm sure you experience this with parenthood. How can I still be a helpful parent when I'm exhausted and tired and stressed out and things are not going well? But how do you still show up in a
Right.
way that doesn't traumatize your children in this particular
Right.
case? And
Yeah.
it's the same thing with everything. It's just a professional working life. How can you be good when it's not a good day? Um,
Right.
and I think, yeah, habits are part of it. You sort of already brought that up.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that the more stuff that you can build into just being automatic. So,
Mhm.
the big one for a lot of triathletes is I don't really like swimming at 5 in the morning.
Mhm.
That's the only time that my pool is open.
Right.
Um, and I really don't like eating at 4 in the morning. if I
Right.
want to like go to the pool and swim effectively. And
Yeah.
so, like for that particular athlete, I would be like, okay, so the swim bag has to be packed the night before and by the door.
Right.
And there has to be a bottle of like a sports drink and a gel, like with it, like the gel, like taped to the bottle.
Right.
So
So,
when you're headed out the door, you just grab it and you eat it and you're on your way. So I
yeah.
think if you can build in some of those guardrails,
Yeah.
then those are the things that can really help. Um, and then, like any system like this, giving yourself, 2 days a month where it's okay. Like
Right.
you skip the
Right.
session, and you don't go to the pool or something. And I think it's like teaching athletes to understand when it's the day to do that and when not,
Yeah.
so like
Yeah.
I I would always tell people, like, if you walk out onto the pool deck and you look at the pool and you were like, fuck no, then I'm like,
Yeah.
just turn around and get out of there, because those are the days that something goes wrong because you're not focused. So
Okay.
and
Yeah.
you might hurt yourself, that kind of thing.
hmm It's interesting. Like I feel like that's such a big thing to learn. Like to learn like when that is really real, like
Hmm.
the I can't do this is really real, or when it's like, oh, I'm really, yeah, it's
Yeah,
just, it's like it's a thin rope
totally.
to like, oh, okay, what is this? And that I feel like that takes time but I feel like a coach can help with that too. But yeah,
Yeah, because I think like the general rule of thumb I try to tell people is like, do 25% of the workout,
yeah,
and happily for like a swim workout, that's like the warm up plus a little bit. And
mm-hmm.
so it's nothing that's going to be like super hard,
Yeah,
but you will know at the end of a warm up whether your sense of like this sucks was real, or you were just having trouble starting, you know.
yeah,
But like,
yeah,
and I think, like you said, it does take time, but if you do a few reps of like, I went to the pool 9 times out of 10, I did the warm up and it went fine. And
yeah,
then the 10th time you do the warm up and you're like, I hate this. And you climb out. Those
yeah,
are the days that I think a good coach will be like, hey, I want you to write down how you felt when you got to the pool,
yeah,
because the whole goal here is consistency
right,
without, you know, the athlete burning themselves out by being
right,
like, I have to make every workout in Training Peaks green, which I hate.
right,
That drives me
yeah,
nuts. um, but
yes,
like learning those physical signs and
yeah,
like, yourself as like a basically a physical provider, like I think that you'll really understand that in a way a lot of other athletes might not, of like,
yeah,
okay, my body feels like blank. And so that
yeah,
means, maybe I don't swim today, or maybe running is off the table.
right, right. I think for me, I've been, knock on wood, pretty lucky about not getting injuries
Mhm.
so far. Um, and I think a lot of that has to do with how much I listen to like just my body, like
Mhm.
and I do yoga like every day. So
Yeah.
there's my little pitch yoga. But
Yeah, totally.
I do think that like just that, yeah,
It's a superpower. That
yeah,
sense of your body, like, is such, because most other athletes have to learn that.
yeah,
And it's one of the reasons why, like I often tell people, like, if you work with us, you are going to get so sick of the question, how hard was that on a scale of 1 to 10?
right.
um like, how much fatigue was that on a scale of 1 to 10? How much pain is that?
Right.
Because everybody's subjective thermostat for all of this stuff is different.
Mm-hmm.
And you literally work in your body and on other people's bodies, so
Mm-hmm.
you already have like that degree of expertise that a lot of
Mm-hmm.
athletes don't. And I think that one thing that a lot of coaches should do more of is really helping their athletes kind of understand their bodily response to stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So you're a parent, a business owner, and a strong amateur triathlete.
Mm,
Those are three like extreme demands on your time.
yeah.
Um, After you had been coached for a while,
Uh-huh.
what were the parts of the program that were like, no, these are non-negotiables for me. I love this. This really helps me.
Yeah.
And then what were the parts of the program where you were like, okay, this was nice to have, but I don't need this. Like
Yeah.
this is just and yeah, I mean, I could say asking for a friend, but yeah, I mean, I think coaches are always sort of looking at how can we serve athletes better and what do they actually need?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's really going to be so individualized.
Hmm.
Because for me, I I loved just like the Discord thing. Like I loved like going on and just that like little community chat that would go on and hopping on and just seeing what everybody was doing or talking about. Like, and I think that that helped me with motivation. Like it helped me stay um involved, or like seeing who was racing and being like, oh, look, this person did that, this person that, and everybody's excited. And like just having that kind of there to be able to go to and check in daily and be like, okay, yeah, people are doing this. I think that like, I find that too sometimes. This is just a random thing, but like I find that too with like Strava, because I feel like triathlon can be such a isolating sport because you're just like just out there running by myself all the time, and then like being able to just hop on something and be like, okay, other people are doing this. So I really liked having that, just that community aspect of it, and like people, everybody having similar, all the same coaches, and like just that was really, I loved that. um and then of course like I loved the before a race, just like the call before a race to check in and be like, okay, let's run through everything. I know it's not going to go as I think, but let's just run through everything. I didn't, for me, I didn't need the, like, I did not use the twice a month calls really. I think I only really talked to Donna before a race. Besides, like, I mean, like, we would do little messages on Training Peaks and stuff,
Hmm.
but and that was nice. But I didn't need the like the calls as much, or I didn't feel like I needed it. I don't know, maybe I
Hmm.
should have utilized that more. But and that might have been just because of my time
Yeah.
too. Like I was like, oh, I can't fit in this 45-minute call. I have to work, and like, and I knew that like with or without that, I would still get the workouts done. Like I was
Hmm.
like, I'll just get it done. And then
Hmm.
like little quick texts or anything was like way, way better for me.
Hmm.
So yeah, that was that would probably be the only thing that I was like, I didn't really need that. But and I think that, but I do think a lot of athletes do need that. I just am somebody who was like, I don't really.
Yeah.
That was one thing that I would just say, I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, it's one of the reasons we try to do communication in like a few different ways. So it's
Yeah.
like, that the Training Peaks communication, like I think is so important. First of all, just because so many athletes, the number of times I talk to a prospective athlete who is coming from a coaching situation where they're like, "Oh, my coach literally never responds to any of my workouts," which
Yeah.
like which blows my mind.
Yeah.
And and I really think that back and forth in Training Peaks is such a great way for the athlete and coach to get to know each other, because like you're talking about, like tactical workouts, like, and sometimes it ends up being something like the athlete is like, I don't know what this abbreviation means. Could you please tell me? And it's like, oh, okay, God, okay, that's something we need to clean up in our processes.
Right.
But it because it happens every day, I think it really forges that connection between coach and athlete in a nice way.
Yeah.
And then sort of email and text kind of fall in the middle of
Hmm.
like, oh, I have something that I need an answer to. Doesn't need to be a phone call. but it's a little
Right.
bit more urgent than like a Training Peaks notification. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, like the phone calls I always see as like a chance to go over, what's happening with the race plan.
Hmm.
The thing I've always found them really valuable for is like being able to see and hear the athlete and
Yeah.
be like, how tired is
Do
this
they work?
athlete? Right. Yeah. Cause like, I mean, the nature of the job eventually is like, sure, like you're organizing workouts and stuff, but it's
Yeah.
really about managing fatigue,
Yeah.
because like you won't ever get faster if you don't get tired. But if you get too tired, that's where
Mhm.
like sickness, injury, and burnout and depression happen. And
Right.
like those are the things, that we obviously really want to avoid. And so that's why I've always been like, yeah, the phone calls are really important. But
Yeah.
it's great. It's always interesting to hear people be like, well, yeah, I just don't have the time.
Yeah.
But we get that contact with like the pre-race calls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that was enough for me, but yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like if you were going to design like a perfect a la carte training program, you would be like, there's got to be a community component.
Yes.
Obviously the workouts are there.
Right.
Workout feedback, that sounds like that was important. Like you do a workout, you
Yeah. I did like the workout feedback. I probably like don't need it on like every work, but like it was nice to
Mhm.
have like get on there and be like, oh, good, she saw I did it or
Yeah.
something like that. Like just having that, like, okay,
Mhm.
perfect. Yeah.
Right. Someone
So yeah,
someone is watching.
right. Somebody
Yeah.
is watching.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then like race plans and pre-race chats, like that sort of sounds like your perfect thing. There's like community, the training is there, your coach is watching, there's a check-in before the
Yeah.
race, and that would kind of be it.
Yeah. And I did really like the post. Like I think I usually would just like send an email about just like my race recap of like how I felt and then Donna might send an email back and just be like, "Oh, little things," because I think that was nice too because it was just fresh in my head and then I could
Mhm.
go, "Ah, why did I feel like this?" Oh, or whatever. And then just having that. Yeah, but that was those things were the things. Yeah.
Was there something that you got out of coaching that you didn't expect to get?
Um, I mean, I was like I didn't think that I would. I don't know. I don't think I knew like how much I would like it, honestly.
Mhm.
Like I think when I first started, like I was nervous. I was like, "Oh, like am I going to be able to do that?" I don't know. Like there was a lot of like questions in my head about that, but and also like how involved do I want to be? I don't know, like but I didn't think it was just surprising how much I was like, "Oh, this is so nice. This is like so nice to be able to hop on Training Peaks and be like, this is what I'm doing. Perfect."
Yeah, I
Not
mean,
having to think about that.
well, yeah, I mean, you have enough other things to think about, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
and I do think that's what a coach can do, because I don't know if Donna ever talked to you about like the stress bucket, but we talk about the stress bucket a lot. That like,
Yeah.
like everybody thinks they can compartmentalize, but compartmentalization is such a myth. Like
Yeah.
every stressful event in your life is a stressor. And like you can't set aside your parenting stress. That's there.
Mhm.
You can
Mhm.
manage it and live with it, but and like having somebody take care of the like question mark of the workouts is a real de-stressor for a lot of athletes, because they're like, no, I want to know that I'm doing the right thing.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And that's what it did. It's great. Yeah. What is like how do you know like as a coach, how do you know that the athlete is getting it? Or like, how do you, like, what's your, like, like, you're like,
Hmm.
okay, we're doing, what are your, like, the signs of like, okay, this is a good fit. This
Mm.
is,
That is such a great question. Um, just trying to think of the athletes that I've worked with where it really works.
yeah.
I think the first sign that it's really working is a really easy manner in the communication. So, like a real sense of trust in both directions. So
Mm-hmm.
like if, I mean, I say this so many times that like your coaching relationship is just like every other relationship in your life. Like it is
Yeah.
dictated by the quality of the communication. And,
Right.
just like any relationship, like, first of all, you have to trust each other. And
Right.
that can take a little time to build, And
Yeah.
so I think a really good sign in the first like 4 to 6 weeks is that you get like a really hard question from your athlete. You get an
Mm.
athlete that says something like, I want to raise my FTP by 20 watts. How are you going to accomplish that? And like
Oh,
that's
okay.
like a very you like put you like you're putting the coach on the spot about not just their expertise but their mastery.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good sign because it means that the athlete is invested, but
Yeah.
they also aren't just there to be spoon fed. Like they want to know how it's going to happen and what the process
Mm-hmm.
is in order to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, sometimes that can make for those like difficult conversation moments, but like that's what makes the relationship better is when you are
Mm-hmm.
able to have difficult conversations and then, come out on the other side. Um, so an athlete that is trusting enough to ask difficult questions,
Yeah.
and that's my responsibility to help create that. That's not just
Right.
the athlete's responsibility. That's the coach's responsibility for making, a safe container and a safe way to talk about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I think, the when I know that something is going really well is when the athlete is achieving about 90% of the workouts as written.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and knows that 100% is maladaptive. That like if somebody is like rigorously doing 100% of their workouts every week for like
Mm-hmm.
8 weeks in a row, like that's the moment when I'm like, do we need to have a discussion about exercise addiction? you know
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this seems a little OCD, and so
Yeah.
like, so
Yeah.
somebody that realizes that the best way forward is that that you take the process seriously, but you don't hold on to it so tightly that you kind of kill it.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is an athlete that has a sense of perspective about the process, like
Yeah.
even if they're like a high performing athlete like like I think a lot of the time we get this message that those athletes are like robots,
Right.
but like most professional triathletes have like a really solid relationship with their body, and they know they're not going to do every 100% of the workouts, and they know when to call it quits. So
Right.
like yeah, for me it's going well when I know that I can have difficult but respectful conversations with an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Um and when they are committed to the process but also like committed to themselves.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, if those things happen and you have good communication, the athlete is doing 90% of the work,
Uh-huh.
they just get better. Like
Yeah.
you just like watch them get better. And it's like
It's,
mostly because of the relationship. Like
yeah.
the actual like physiology of endurance improvement is pretty simple and was sort of set in place about 80 years ago.
Right.
And so like it's simpler than it looks. And if you just do something sensible for somebody and then talk about it and make it safe for them, then they just get better. It's wonderful to see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
That was a very
Yeah.
roundabout answer.
No, I loved it.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Um uh, now that you're self-coached again, what are some of the things that you've like taken from coaching that you apply in your self-coaching? And then
Yeah.
there's a follow-up to that is like, what are you learning about, training and physiology because of those lessons that you learned from being coached?
Yeah. Well, so okay, so I stopped coaching with Donna after I did Indian Wells. And then it was like, I took like a little bit of a like, okay, I'm just going to chill for almost like the month of December. And then I knew I was running the Eugene Marathon. And I just kind of stuck to the schedule basically that Donna had given me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to ride on Mondays. I'm going to run on Tuesdays. And she was very helpful when I left because she gave me a pretty good, like, rough outline of like, I want you to, like, because I asked her, like, if you were coaching me, how many 800s would you be having me do when I'm at the peak of my training?
Awesome.
And she told me, and I was like, oh, what? So, but like, and I probably did not do it like the way she would have had me do it, but it was nice to be able to like, okay, this is what I'm working towards.
Mhm.
And I would just, I tried to do the cycling, the like 3 to 4 weeks on, and then I'd give myself a recovery week. Cause that was something too that I learned just through coaching of like, yeah, you need to do that. And then um but I did like when I got up into the higher mileage, I was like falling. I mean, I was like falling off on everything else. Like my
Mhm.
swimming was falling off, my biking was falling off, and I was like, okay. And that was one thing that I missed with having a coach because I felt like if I were having a coach, it would have been easier because like there were days where like after my long run of like 19 miles, and then I'd be like, should I be biking the next day? Like those questions of like, I don't know, like
Mhm.
should I be resting my legs? Should I like all these like I don't know. So that was I missed that, and
Mhm.
I was kind of, but that's also where I just dove into how my body was feeling, and I just was trying to listen to it and be like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, today I feel like I can do an easy ride, or it'd be like, no,
Mhm.
I'm not, and I'm just going to pick it back up the next day type of a thing. And I tried hard to like stick to the like core, like the 800 days and the long run days. I was like, if
Mhm.
I can get those in consistently, um, but I missed having, I'm like, yeah. And like, even now, like, as I go back into just like try training, I'm still kind of sticking with the same routine that the schedule that Donna has given me because I feel like it worked really
Mhm.
well. Um, but I'm struggling with like being like what type of ride. I'll like look back and I'm like, what type of ride am I supposed to be doing on Mondays?
Mhm.
What type of ride am I supposed to be doing on Wednesdays? So like trying to like go back and like look at things and be like, okay, so this looks like this, and like trying to just mimic it. But then
Mhm.
also I'm at this point where I'm like, I don't know, like I don't understand enough to know like when to up things
Mhm.
or like, like that sort of a thing. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm doing my best, but like,
Well,
I do feel like I'm flailing a little bit. And I'm like, okay, okay.
yeah, but I mean, like the fact. the how is my body feeling? Like that's such the like God statistic. That's such the best skill to have, and I do think
Yeah.
that, you probably came in with a fair bit of that already. And then,
Yeah.
you work with a coach and you start to realize like, oh, when I feel like this, they're like, it's time for recovery day. And
Yeah.
then, and that's the biggest one because that's the one that will keep you from getting, hurt, you know
Right.
and then yeah, like the actual like workout programming, that's like just going to school.
Right.
It just takes time, and either you like
Right.
learn from, podcasts or books or trial and error, but you
Mhm.
will eventually figure that out. And
Yeah.
the thing you will eventually figure out is that like 90% of your training time should just be going and doing the thing, you know,
Right.
swimming, cycling, or
Right.
running at like just a moderate effort. And that like, and then you begin to discover like, oh, okay, I'm working on this energy system, so I should do this kind of training, you know.
Right.
And that's just the nature of like learning a thing, like somebody
Yeah.
who was, 10 years behind you in terms of the myofascial stretching, like you'll be like, oh, well, clearly you do this. But in their place,
Mhm.
they're like, well, I haven't learned that yet, and they're kind of getting, just getting up to speed.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It'll
Um,
take it'll
I've got through my questions. Would you have any other
Yeah.
questions that you have to ask about for me or about coaching or anything like that?
I mean, you kind of like answered a lot of them. The other one that I had was but you kind of said it in the was just like how like when an athlete does like disagree with something that you
Hmm.
say, like what is for you, like what's the best way for them to handle that? But I feel like you're going to say just communicate it. But yeah.
Sure. Yeah, but I think I see what you're getting at because like just saying just communicate it is, that's the classic like, easy to say, hard to do.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think like with any kind of good communication, it's
Hmm.
like, can you say the thing without possibly saying other things? Like because like that's where like the place where people get into conflict is like, you said X but I heard Y.
Right.
And so like figuring out those like, okay, how are we going to communicate effectively, and what are the ways
Hmm.
that we are going to bump heads, like, and so I think that goes into that first month of coaching.
Yeah.
And I would say that's the time like to definitely do those phone calls.
Yeah.
Like if I were to sort of tweak your dream thing, I would be like, okay, so like maybe a phone call before races, but in the
Yeah.
first month being like, let's talk once a week and figure out
Right.
like, like, and I think every coach during those conversations should be like, hey, um if you say something like this, it's really going to set me off.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's an athlete I work with who lives on the East Coast, and
Uh-huh.
recently they said something like, you gave me this workout and I wondered, was this my workout? And I had to
Oh.
I had to take a deep breath and like go for a walk. I had a coach early on who would copy and paste workouts, and it totally infuriated me.
Yeah.
Because it really you're like, this is not what I signed up for. Like this is not my
Right.
workout.
Right.
Um, and so I said back to the athlete, I was like, I don't think this is what you were saying, but I just want to say to you, like, this is a real trigger for me. Like I
Yeah.
have I have built this company out of like, we don't do that. We don't copy and paste, from another athlete's plan.
Right.
Because like, and so like, I think that both the athlete and the coach during that initial period should be like,
Hmm.
hey, what are the things that's really gonna
Yeah.
like send you through the roof that I don't know about?
Right.
And I think
Right.
that if you do that, and again, like it's just, it's just like a relationship. Like you got to
Yeah.
figure out what the other person, how you might say something that you don't mean, but that can really derail things. Um,
Right.
and if I think if you do that work up front, that's what builds that trust. And like,
Yeah.
and then it becomes a lot easier for the coach to be like, hey, like, looks like you haven't swam in a week. Can we talk about
Yeah.
it? And
Right.
then, and then the athlete will say why, and, and you can figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. That's good.
Well,
I
yeah,
was,
go ahead.
yeah. Uh, um, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that was like pretty much everything. Um, when do you, okay, one
Yeah.
more. When do you feel, when do you feel the most supported as a coach?
Wow. Um, that's a great question. From the athletes I work with, is that what you mean? Like
Yeah.
from, yeah.
Yeah. Like when you're like, oh, I feel like they appreciate me, or like
Mhm.
when do you feel like what do they do that you feel the most supported in coaching?
It's a good one. Um, I feel when I really feel like it's a collaboration.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
when I feel like the athlete and I are working together, and whatever it is that they're training for goes well, and they acknowledge the fact that it's not me, that it's a thing that they did together. Like that's what I want. Like I want to be working collaboratively with athletes, because that's the only way this works actually. like like
Yeah.
I can never be feeling what the athlete is feeling. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't have access to that subjective experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so like any plan that I make is an educated guess. And so when we're working effectively together and then it goes
Mm-hmm.
well, and they're like, this was great. Like, and you can see them just very, very happy about the outcome. Like that's very
Mm-hmm.
gratifying as a coach, that,
Yeah.
that feeling that you have helped somebody do something that they probably couldn't have done on their own, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I used to be a teacher, so like, it makes sense that those are the things that I'm
Right.
into. But yeah, that's a very, very positive feeling for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's good.
Yeah. Nice. So where can people find out about what it is that you do, and where can people follow along with your triathlon journey?
Well, um, what I have a website. It's fcstretching.com,
Hmm.
and that's like where people can see what the assisted stretching that I do is, and book appointments or whatever, contact me. And then I just my Instagram, which
Hmm.
is just Annie Monica. And yeah, I mean I just post on there. I have some stretch videos. I try to get into habits of stretching those or
Hmm.
like posting those regularly, and I fall off. But I do a lot of my triathlon journey on there. So yeah, that's where.
Uh,
Strava.
Everybody, Annie has very good time lapse stretching videos that are very useful. So I will say those are some of my favorite content. But yes, everybody
Yeah.
go give Annie a follow, and if you're ever in Salem, go and hit her up at her studio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. This is really cool. It was great to have you flip the script a little bit and ask me some difficult questions. I really appreciate it, and I hope we get to work together again some point.
Yeah. Me too. All right. Thanks, Chris.
All right. Thanks so much, Annie. We'll talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.